Okay, I've discussed this this formerly secular and skeptical podcast put out by Point of Inquiry, POI. I think they're run by the CFI, Center for Inquiry. But I listened to a recent episode with Meredith Dank on sex workers. I believe she was part of a $500,000 study funded by our government, I think, to find out who's spending money on, she calls it the underground, or she calls it the underground or illegal sex trade, as opposed to, I guess, dancers and escort services. I don't know. But of course, $500,000 was wasted. This just totally enrages me. These are radical feminists, Meredith Dank, who has boundless amount of compassion and excuses for the prostitutes involved, but nothing but contempt for the pimps involved. She calls them pimps. She doesn't call the prostitutes prostitutes. She calls them sex workers. So in her view, she calls them victims. She calls them victims continually. They're the victims. The perpetrators are the pimps. But it's just so black and white in this woman's mind. I don't know if whether she thinks prostitution should be legal or not. I would like to ask you, Meredith Dank, I wish the interviewer on POI would have asked her, I mean, the glaring question, do you think prostitution should be legal or illegal? I don't think she would have an answer. Feminists do really not want to find answers to their questions or their problems. They just like to stir it up and keep the problem going, actually. So she sort of likes the idea that there are sex workers. She calls it trafficking. And trafficking is such a good loaded word, sex trafficking. But she says that, trafficking doesn't even have to mean movement. Trafficking sounds like, wow, lots of people going by quickly. No, she says trafficking could be just like from one room to another, so I don't know what trafficking means. Can you traffic yourself? Because she says many of these sex workers, as she calls them, don't have pimps. They use the internet and they have their own little clientele. And most of her survey was conducted with pimps because she says they were able to question a lot of pimps because there are a lot of them in jail. They're right in jail and they're willing to talk. But she didn't really speak to a lot of sex workers. You know why? Because there aren't a lot of sex workers or prostitutes in jail. So I don't see where the victimhood is coming in. They're not addressed. They're hardly ever. Okay, I guess they do arrest prostitutes, but they generally don't stay in jail long. It's generally it's a misdemeanor, I believe. It's certainly a slap on the wrist. Maybe it should be a slap on the wrist. But that's what it is, lady, Ms. Dank. But pimps are going to jail for longer times. Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. I don't know. But you seem to portray the pimps as these horrible criminals that are forcing these poor women to do these acts. Sometimes they keep them in line by beatings or get them hooked on drugs. I don't know how you get people hooked on drugs. People take drugs of their own accord. People turn tricks of their own accord, generally. Okay? So what should we do, Miss Dank? There are some areas in the country, in this country, and there are countries, other countries, where prostitution is legal. You're making this out to be a crime on the order of murder. These are people having sex for money. People have sex for free. That's perfectly fine, obviously. But as soon as there's payment involved, all of a sudden it's a murderous crime. We do have to figure out where we want to go with this. I think we've already done it. I think it's basically a victimless crime. If we want to legalize it, we have to debate that. But if you want to get rid of the pimps, I guess you would legalize prostitution. This has such parallels to the drug culture. With illegal drugs, the dealers who are selling the drugs, that's pretty much a source that you want to go after. We don't hold the drug sellers innocent and blame the buyers only. We do put both people in jail because without the buyers you don't have the sellers. Without the sellers you don't have the buyers. So what are we doing about prostitution? Aren't they the sellers? Oh, so we shouldn't punish them for selling, but we should punish the buyers. Makes no sense. Okay, about this Solange person assaulting Jay-Z. I couldn't believe I'm watching, of course, the news. Well, I do believe it. I know that how PC everything is and feminism gone bad, gone wrong, but here's the film clip, of course, the video of this woman, Solange, kicking and punching a man. It seems seemingly unprovoked. But, of course, the question, people start asking the question right away, gee, I wonder what he said to provoke that. Why is that the question? That could be a question, but my comment is, the fuck is she kicking him about? And why isn't she in fucking jail? That's bullshit. That's not the question you ask. That's blaming the victim. I don't give a shit what he said. I don't care what he said. Nothing should provoke violence in a man or a woman. And people right off the bat should have said, as soon as some jerk iterated that question, gee, I wonder what he might have said, I would have cut them right off and said, doesn't matter what he said. Why would you even ask that question? He's the victim here. Case closed. How about that other video of that middle-aged teacher manhandling, what was it, looked like an 8-year-old, pulling him up by his collar, smashing him against the wall? That's abuse. You know, women are just as capable, and they do these same things that men and boys are supposedly only do. They do it all the time. I'm glad that this is becoming more of an issue, because men and women violence, domestic violence, is not a gendered issue. It's a people issue. I have to say, when I watched this on Channel 4, there you are, Matt Lauer, and Savannah Guthrie, and Al Roker, Natalie, and Tamron. Why don't any of you have the guts in 2014, where we're supposedly getting past bigotry and hatred and discrimination? Why didn't someone say nobody should be hitting anybody else, man or woman? Bullshit.